Alrighty, here I am with Jason Veering, one of the absolute originals in Redmayne. He joined the program late 2023 when we were a very, very small community. And since then, he's been absolutely going gangbusters. He's up to deal 5, been flipping. He's quit his FIFO job that he did for 17 years. And today, we're just going to deep dive on Jace's story. So we're going to talk about his mindset and motivation for getting into flipping and obviously walking away from FIFO. You know, the deals that he's done, the wins that he's had, the learnings he's had. Yeah, so welcome, Jace.
G'day, mate. How you going?
Good. Let's go back to the beginning, hey? Talk to me about where you were a couple of years ago and what you were doing before you got into...
Before we spoke?
Before we spoke.
Okay. The running joke I always had was at that stage I was about 16 years into a quick 2-year mining stint. So that's where I was at. I got into FIFO, sort of fell into it like a lot of the other guys in WA, and was playing in property, pretty much predominantly bit of buy and hold and bit of reno here and there, but not really to the point where it was sustaining me at all. I was still working full time, so but always just looking at different ideas, and you know we were sort of getting a bit creative, and that's when I sort of stumbled across your content, and the rest is history. We made contact and went from there, sort of thing.
Yeah, amazing. So I know, obviously, from chatting to you, you know, you had done a couple of flips, and I remember you sort of sending me a bit of a laughs out loud message, and you'd had a 1 or 2 flips, and you'd made a very modest amount.
Yeah, look, and you know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, we learnt a lot. We didn't know how to do the numbers correctly. We got caught up in you know, properties that looked cheap, and they were cheap properties. But when you really started to factor in you know, the cost of the renovations, where they were, like they were well over an hour from where we were living, and at the end of the day, you know, for the time that we put in, we didn't lose money. That was the positive, but yeah, didn't break any records on those at all. But yeah, I still look back at them as great learning experiences, and compared to what I've been doing recently, it's there wasn't a lot of money in it.
Yeah, and I suppose, and I think maybe you know you might have been the same. A lot of people, when they start flipping, if they haven't really, I suppose, got that education, that they're not factoring in the purchase costs, the holding costs.
You don't know what you
don't
know. You just don't know what you don't know. And look, I'm a learner through doing. So I mean, and I have met people that have lost money. So I do credit that we didn't. We just, you know, look, we didn't get paid very well for what we did. But yeah, every flip, even to today, you learn little things. But a lot of the stuff back then was quite serious, fundamental stuff that we didn't know.
Yeah,
and there was gaps in that. So you know, it was great to fill the holes with obviously some of the training that we ended up doing together, sort of thing. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously mentioned you haven't lost any money, but I think, you know, losing money is not always the end of the world either, because if you can, you know, unless you lose a lot of money, obviously.
That's right. Yeah.
But I mean, even myself, I've had a deal where, you know, I lost money. I didn't lose a lot, but I lost. But there's still a lot of learnings that you take away. And
I honestly think that not just in flipping, I think that you learn more out of losses than you do out of gains sometimes, just in life in general, because they hurt.
100%. Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a bit of hurt to sort of really sharpen your focus or sharpen your efforts. So
For sure. Yeah. I think you make a good point there, because when you winning and you haven't had the wins, then sometimes you can get a little bit
bit complacent, man.
100%, yeah.
Overconfident, yeah.
Yeah, and then when you actually have maybe a loss, but obviously not a loss, maybe, you know, I call it a learning, then it makes you realise, okay, and what you take away from that is obviously you can use that, and obviously
I find that it sticks in harder.
For sure.
It's something to bounce off, you know.
100%, so, you know, not what to do, essentially.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's just talk about the motivation for you in obviously joining the program, because you were already a tradie. You knew how to renovate houses, you know. You've obviously been working FIFO. You know you practically can renovate the house yourself from top to bottom.
Right. Yeah.
So, what was the motivation for you to say, I'm going to join a program on how to flip houses for profit?
I had done some property training over the years on various styles. I'd done a course on how to identify values of properties for more of a buy and hold. that sort of stuff, and that was fantastic, and we put that into practice. I think there's a multi-angle on why I sort of looked at the flipping. I realised that getting older, buy and hold is a real powerful tool. The younger you are, the better, because you've got more time to soak it in the market.
100%.
And I started to realise that probably more of an active role, to just generate the money out of the deal rather than wait for the growth to happen.
Yeah.
Looked at developing, and it's something I'm still looking at now. And as I said, we'd already done renovations. It was mainly that I just needed to hone those skills around structures, financing, understanding how to do feasibilities, that sort of stuff. That was the driver, was just we were there.
Yeah.
Like, I knew the nuts and bolts. I knew what it took to do a renovation. It was more about, exactly what we spoke about before, where I come unstuck on the previous ones. So,
yeah, okay.
yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds to me like, obviously being a trader, you've done renovations.
Yep.
You were super comfortable in that area.
Yeah, about how it all went together, yeah.
So, so basically, okay, what are the finer details that I've got to basically learn, which were obviously, you mentioned structures. So, like, for example, flipping in a company maybe versus
That's
flipping
right.
in your own name.
That's right, yeah.
So, like, and then obviously the legal and accounting side, even when it comes to like legals, like, maybe like money partners and private lending, where you can,
absolutely.
help scale and use
Joint ventures.
which
we'll get into.
we'll definitely dive into your JV. But yeah, I suppose it's more from a numbers and like an accounting perspective and a structure and all the rest of it, to make sure that you're essentially doing it as best you can and maximising your profits. Essentially.
Yeah, do it more as a business than like a hobby, like a side hobby. So
yeah. So from a motivation as well, like, were you sort of thinking like, okay, I've been doing FIFO for a long time now, I don't want to do FIFO anymore. Were you going into this to flip full time, or were you going in as a side hustle just to make more cash on the side? What do you reckon the motivation was from that perspective?
I think the idea of leaving FIFO for property was always the plan. As I said, I sort of fell into it, and it was the lifestyle of the time off that I was in FIFO. A lot of people chase the money. The money's great, but I was there for the time off so that I could do my property stuff. I mean, the original plan was we were owner building a house, and that's why I wanted the time to do the owner building, and that continued. And then the reason I stayed from FIFO for so long was that there wasn't another option. Like, coming back to Perth wasn't that appealing to me, like commuting and doing all that sort of stuff and working for someone. And I just thought, well, if that's the other option, then I'll stay FIFO. So if I could create an income from property, that was probably the most likely way of getting out of FIFO.
Yeah, okay.
In short, to get out of FIFO, I wanted to continue with the passion of property, but I just needed a little bit of guidance and support to hone those skills before I was confident to do it.
For sure. And I think you make a good point. Obviously, we're both from WA, and a lot of people are in the FIFO industry. One, because it pays better than what people get in town.
Yeah.
But secondly, and I suppose, everything's expensive, but if they can earn more money being away from home, then obviously that's an option for a lot of people. But I suppose it also comes down to, for some people, that they get that time off, right?
That's right.
So you
lifestyle,
had a bit, so you were away for, what was it, 8 and 6 or 8 and 6 or
the majority was even time, 8 and 6, 2 and 2, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So basically, would you say, because you had that time off, coming back to Perth and being able to essentially, start your flipping journey or taking your flipping journey more seriously, that was obviously, you had that sort of life balance to be able to put that time and effort into it while you sort of got your built momentum. And
it was definitely good to transition and being pretty successful from the get-go once I did the training was also, a pretty positive thing. But yeah, it was definitely, I was considering exiting FIFO, and it just, I think everything just all aligned at the right time, to be honest, that, we sort of made contact and planets aligned as such. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just so for everyone that's listening, so obviously when you were working FIFO, what was your trade? What were you doing up in the mines?
It was wide and varied. My initial background from a young sort of start was in the electrical sort of things, and then I was in the Navy for 10 years doing electronics and communications and that sort of thing. Got out of the Navy and went into sort of the mobile phone space, the infrastructure around mobile phone networks and towers and that sort of stuff. So that's where my strengths are. Got into mining with that trade. While I was in mining, I sidestepped and did an adult apprenticeship in auto electrician. So I did that as well. And then over the course of the next 10 years, I sort of flip-flop back between the two, into the workshop sort of auto sparky side of things and then back into the nerdy sort of networky sort of thing, back and forth. So very much electronics, communications, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome,
So,
awesome. I want to sort of jump into your first flip, and like I
Yep.
said, you joined the program. I think it was late 2023, so you were one of the first
yeah,
guys
we
in
started talking October
October
23.
2023. Okay,
Yeah.
When did you land that first deal?
Set up all the company structures. I did all your course, set up all the structures and that, I think over Christmas.
Yep,
And I think I hit the ground February 24
yep.
was the one with Eric. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so
So,
February 24.
Yeah.
And obviously a very unique strategy, that one.
Yeah, it was I haven't been able to repeat it yet, but interesting fella, really sort of a little bit different than what you'd normally get, or not normally, but other ways of doing it is, buying the property and then doing the renovation and selling the property. I was fortunate enough to meet an elderly gentleman that had a property that he'd built
Yep.
early 60s. And a long story short, what a character. Did a great joint venture with Eric, 6-week renovation in the end.
Yep.
And fantastic result, which really just
What
changes your whole mindset when something like that happens.
what was the profit on that first deal?
That was 147,000 over a 6-week reno.
Which is pretty crazy. Now,
Mm.
obviously mining pays pretty well, and I
Mm.
know you were getting paid pretty well. But what are people earning in a FIFO role?
In my role before I left,
Yeah, and in general in a FIFO.
look, I'm not going to be too specific, but
As a range.
it was north of 200.
Okay,
But that's an annual salary.
an annual salary.
Yeah, exactly. So
if you can do 2 or 3 flips a year, there's obviously some good money.
I mean, even one flip at that for most people they'd be pretty happy.
would be suffice.
Yeah. So
I want to deep dive on that strategy because it was a seller joint venture.
Yep.
You never bought the property.
Yep.
Walk me through that process of that deal. So, obviously, in the program, I sort of spell out what that strategy is.
Yeah.
But can you sort of share with us your process or your journey with
Yeah,
that deal with Eric?
and why I went that path. I
Yep.
mean, there is a certain number of things that have got to be in a deal. A joint venture typically is going to work if the property's empty.
Yep.
That was one of the first things that jumped out to me. Eric was already in some assisted care, so he wasn't at the property. There's some things that you look at as far as like, do you want to do a joint venture with the person? Like,
Yep.
what's the situation like? I built a really good rapport with Eric over the course of a couple of weeks and got to understand his position, family situation, what could impact doing a joint venture.
100%.
And then really when you start doing the sums, why would you buy if you don't have to buy the property, why would you buy the property? Why would you pay the stamp duty? Why would you have finance holding costs? Why would you do those sorts of things when, and I'd never done it before, but definitely lent on your training, engaged the lawyers, got all the legal stuff together.
Yep.
It's a bit wordy. It's a bit, there's a bit to it. But at the end of the day, I mean, Eric was stoked that we were doing a partnership basically. And, he was sort of kept up to date at how it went all the way through the project. And then, we both ended up with a great outcome at the end. So
Yeah, awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Now, just for those obviously listening, tell us in your, exactly what a seller joint venture is, because some people are thinking, what the hell are these guys talking about?
Okay. So as I said before, the other deals that I've done and probably the large majority of deals, you find a property, whether it's on market, off market, however you find the property, you make an offer on the property, you do a deal, you buy the property, you pay the costs associated with the stamp duty to the government and all the other costs and bits and pieces. You've got settlement periods that you've got to wait out before you get the property, and then off you go. Now you've got to finance the property with your own funds or money partner funds or wherever you get the money from, and then every week that you're renovating on the property, you've got interest incurred on that. and then you go back on the market and you do the whole thing in reverse. Now with the JV, you're not purchasing the property, so you're basically financially you're removing the stamp duty. And the other one is, I mean, this was a cheaper house, so the financing costs wouldn't have been huge. But even over a 12-week period on a $500,000-$600,000 buy, your holding costs are considerable. You're paying 20, 30 grand in interest just to hold the property. So you add those two together, and by just legally controlling the property with a good lawyer that knows what he's doing and is conversant in this sort of setup, you're 40 grand ahead from day one.
That's an extra 40 grand in your pocket.
Do you know what I mean? From day one, that could be the difference between a deal or a no deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you get your head around the fact that, and also the person that owns the property's got to be confident that you're basically taking his property without paying him.
Yep.
He's going to get paid at the end, but it just comes down to building that rapport and communicating and walking through the process and.
For sure.
They're my favourite. If I could do JVs, I'd do JVs. They're great.
It's a pretty cool strategy to think that you can pretty much come in and control a property and make a significant profit without any purchase costs, without any holding costs, and all you're likely having to pay for is a renovation cost, which in reality, there's been other people in the program that have then used other people's funds,
That's right.
like a money partner, to fund the renovation as well. So it's pretty crazy that you can basically do a no money down deal almost without
That's right.
and still make a significant even 3-figure profit.
Yeah, it's creative. I love it.
Yeah. Sorry, 6-figure profit, I should say.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate. Now with the whole seller JV strategy, a big part of it is obviously creating a win-win.
Yeah.
So some people are probably thinking like, why? Who on earth would do that? Like, why wouldn't you just sell the property? In your words, why would somebody agree to a seller joint venture?
Well, I can give you an example of Eric. Eric, wanted to. He wasn't ready to let go of the property. Like it was a lot of unfinished emotional connection to that property. So for him, it was, and the sort of the offer for me. I mean, I went and picked up Eric at various stages, and it's probably a little bit out of the norm, but went and picked him up and brought him over and showed him the different stages. So for him, the minute that I mentioned joint venture, his eyes lit up. Like he had unfinished business in that property. So that's one example. Some people, obviously, as I said before, if I'm not having holding costs and I'm not paying stamp duty, I might be able to offer an extra 20, 30, 40 grand. That might be the difference. Another example of I come across people that don't like authority, or they don't like agents, or they don't like the machine, the system. So if they can help you not pay stamp duty, or stick it to the government, or whatever, it's different. Everybody's got a different underlying drive for what they want out of the deal. So not for everybody, but that would be some of the reasons that a seller might be looking at doing a partnership rather than wiping their hands of the property.
For sure. And look, the reality is in the business that we're in with property flips, and we're not buying great houses, are we? Like the houses we buy don't present.
Well, we'd love to, but they don't seem to fall in our price range.
Well, they don't seem the deal doesn't stack up, right?
That's right.
So I suppose a big reason why someone would entertain a JV is because the way their house present is just not market ready.
Yeah.
So the reality is, in many cases, it's going to be a property flipper that buys it.
Yeah. I mean, home opens aren't on the cards, or any of that sort of public sort of stuff's not on the cards. So, yeah.
Because, I mean, walk us through some of the houses. I mean, obviously we're dealing with hoarder houses, drug houses, tenants that are trashed houses, people in all sorts of, difficult financial situations. But because of that, quite often these houses are in.
There's a bit of shame. There's a bit of probably one of the more common things is just feeling like they're being backed into a corner. Whether it's a relationship breakdown or I've gone to some settlements and you look at the disbursements and you look at what goes out of how far they're behind in rates or how far they're behind in just mortgage. You know what I mean? They've just really got themselves into a real hole. So there's a lot of drivers, for people to sell the houses the way they do to people like us, or with letterbox drops or however we contact them.
Yeah.
And very unique. I mean, you've done enough to know that every situation is different.
100%.
There's some common threads. Usually a bit of mess and a bit of things have gone sour for a long time.
Yeah,
But
these things don't happen overnight.
no,
do they?
that's right. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, as I said, that no two are the same. So
100%.
it's quite funny once you get in and start peeling back the layers. It can be quite interesting.
For sure. Look, I know even with a lot of the content I put out, I get a lot of people, there's always hate from people like, oh,
Yep.
you guys are the reason, you're causing the housing crisis, you're taking all the cheap houses away from the first home buyers.
Yeah.
And I believe we're the fucking solution, right? Because if we're not fixing these houses up, they ain't being fixed, right? But what have you got to say to those people?
Well, exactly touching on what you just said. Look, just not to go into it too deeply, but when I built my first house, the expectations of houses were pretty basic. You know what I mean? We didn't have fences, we didn't have anything, and that's just what we put up with. The generation of today, the younger generation of today, and it's not through any fault of their own or whatever, but the expectations are considerably more. I don't think they're going to be looking at the houses that we're looking at. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't think that the younger generation, or any, not even just the younger guys, most people don't want to buy a house that's full of animal feces and drug paraphernalia and absolute mess.
6 skip bins to get all the crap
you know what
out.
I mean? And that's it. So I don't know how you can draw a parallel there. If we're not, coming in and fixing them up and putting them to market, then they'll probably sit off the market. It's
Yeah.
I don't think that it's in any way are we adding to the problem of the house. I think people are just frustrated and looking for excuses, to try and blame someone.
100%.
So, and that's why I don't even listen to it. I'm sure you don't either, really.
Yeah,
So,
no, 100%. I completely agree.
Mm.
Just look, going back to your first flip then. So, I know it wasn't your first flip, but if your
the
first,
first official.
Yep. Talk to me about how it felt, like obviously the result.
Yeah.
Talk to me about like the moment you realised the sort of money that you were making from one deal.
Well, yeah, that was. I mean, you know what I'm about to say, but I got to a point where, and look, I was fortunate. There was some timing with the WA market as well. I'm not going to be blind to that. We had a very strong presence from buyers, agents, and that sort of stuff in WA. But I did my feasibility on certain numbers. I try and be conservative, realistic but conservative. And when I got towards the end of the flip and the numbers that were being reassessed, I did the profit share with Eric, which I spoke to you about.
Can you just touch on that profit share? What do you mean by that?
I got to the point there where I understand, and this is a bit personal, and it's not the most professional, or it's just a certain situation arose where I sort of got a better understanding of Eric's financial position, and I thought he was in his 80s, and I thought at this time of his life he still had quite a bit of financial burden, and when I saw my profits getting smashed out of the park, I expected to make 80 grand on this property, and all of a sudden I was making, it was looking like I was going to be making 180 grand.
Yep.
I just sort of entered into a profit share with Eric where I said, look, this is where I expected for it to land. How about anything above that, we'll go halves. You know what I mean? Because I've still got learning potential 10 times bigger than Eric. And as we will talk about soon, like I've gone on to make a considerable amount more money, but this was Eric's last earning opportunity.
Yep.
Like he was literally in care.
And it was a JV, right?
It was a JV. And so, there was that real bond and we really did bond. And I thought, this is his last chance. And then I can afford, I mean, when I thought that, I'll go your halves, anything above the number that I wrote, I thought he might get an extra 5 or 10 grand,
Yep.
He got an extra 30 grand.
Yeah.
So the 147 that I made should have been
177.
177. But no, it doesn't. I honestly haven't really sat down and gone, damn, I messed that up because it was considerable. I felt that it really made a difference to him, and that's water under the bridge. I'm 3 or 4 flips down the road, but so
you've had a massive win, and it was a win-win for both.
And that's it. And I can honestly say that every one that I've done so far, there has been an element of win-win.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
Yep.
Talk to us about, from that very first deal, talk to me about lessons. Now, let me dive a bit deeper. Obviously, we've sort of touched on accountants and
Mm.
solicitors. So talk to me about the structure, the company. Talk to these sorts of lessons that you've learned. JV agreements. Solicitors. Talk to me
Yeah.
about the learnings from that first deal.
Yeah. Okay. It was specifically in that structural side of things, it was a very steep learning curve. But I just had to learn to empower people and not so much trust people, but the resources were there. I was in a reasonably good network of people that I could talk to and call upon for the right sort of info. There was a lot of paperwork. It's but you get the right people in, and they do their job. That was the JV side of things. The company side of things, same thing. New accountant. I'd had a different accountant for a long time. I engaged a new guy purely because he was in that space and he really did understand what we were doing. Since then, I've had a lot of people that have spoken to me about entering and doing this sort of stuff, and their accountant has a totally different look on how things are, and that's very important because setting it up wrong from the start can cost you a lot of money if you're not in the right structure, if you're not doing the right tax, planning and all that sort of stuff can be quite detrimental to unpick or redo. So those two, the accountant and the lawyer.
So just on the accountant. So for example, if you're flipping in your own name, there's obviously
different tax
CGT,
considerations. Yeah,
correct. And if you're flipping inside
your favourite word, CGT, there, mate.
Or something I hate having to talk about every 5
over
minutes.
and over and over again.
But obviously, if you're flipping in your own name, there's CGT, and if you're flipping within 12 months, there's no CGT discount, all that sort of stuff. But obviously, flipping in a company, it now becomes a business, so there's
That's
obviously different tax
Yeah,
tax
and
rates. And
I'm the
stuff.
first to admit that I don't know it back to front.
Yep.
But my accountant does.
Yep.
So I just basically, he's set it all up. There's trusts and companies, and that's how it goes together. And if I've got any questions on how I'm behaving as a company or as a business, I just flick him an email and say, well, how do I do this? Like, do I do it this way? Do I buy it in this entity, or do I how does the money need to transfer around? And he's good. He sort of just keeps me on track and
for sure
makes sure it's
for
getting done the right way.
For sure. And we sort of just touched on lawyers as well. And I think lawyers scare a lot of people, right? Because when people think of lawyers, they think of criminal charges, they think of divorce lawyers, like that sort of stuff. But when you're in business, you need lawyers because you need to make sure that you've got the right protection in place,
about protections.
Right?
It is.
Correct.
And with a joint venture, and I'm actually, going through another one as we speak, like literally in the last couple of days. It's about talking about protection from both sides.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to convince someone to hand over their house for you to have ultimate control over, to renovate it how you want to renovate it, and them have some sort of protection. And I'm the same. I want to be protected because I'm investing my money
into that project,
into the house that I don't even own.
Yeah.
So that's where the lawyer stuff is really important.
It's not a handshake, is it?
No, that's right. I mean, it starts with one, but at the end of the day, it's pen on paper, and it's got to be locked in. So.
Yeah, and that's why the JV agreement has to be extensive, right? Because it has to actually talk about the roles of both parties.
Yeah, and the depth of it is what ifs
and the security.
And a classic example was Eric. I mean, what if I'm dealing with an 80-year-old plus guy? You've got to be real. What if certain things happen during the process? It's not the end of the deal. You've just got to understand what that looks like
100%.
and what it means. So, yeah.
No,
anyway.
Couldn't agree more. So that first deal, just run me through the numbers. So just tell me what you paid for it.
Okay.
And obviously your renovation
put me on the
cost.
spot a little bit. I'll do my best.
Well, hang on. You didn't pay for it
That's
because
right.
you did a JV.
No, that's right. So the agreed price for Eric was $400.
Okay.
I spent about 67 to 70, around about there.
Yep.
Lawyers were, I'm just going to throw rough numbers, but probably about $5,000 in getting the lawyers and everything done there. All your staging, agents, advertising, that sort of stuff. But when, as I said, I promised Eric 400, which was fair market value.
Which was, but it was a couple of years ago, right?
You try and talk now, it's pretty hard to find that, but that was correct, and that
Yep.
was based on the general area. The property sold for 660. Now that was, things were hot.
Yep.
I did well. My FIFO was 580. That was what I expected.
But you were probably pretty conservative with that 580.
I'm very conservative,
Yep.
just to make sure that it's going to work. I never get caught in trying to do a feasibility with a bit of growth in there. I don't want to go, well, it's going to take 3 months and Perth's growing at 10%,
Yep.
No, it's got to be basically what's happening right now, and even sort of just knock it down just a little bit as well, because all it takes is, and look at what we're going through, government policy changes, interest rate changes, it can go one way or the other very quickly. So you've got to be, I think you've got to be conservative,
Yeah, so basically you guaranteed Eric 400.
400.
You spent how much on the reno?
Let's say 70.
70 on the reno.
Yeah.
You sold it for
660.
660.
Yeah.
But there was what was the number that you said if it sold over and above that, you'd go 50-50 on the profit?
600.
So anything over 600, so it went for 660. So you
30 grand extra went to Eric.
And and you walked away with 147K on that first.
Yeah.
And for everyone that's listening, obviously you would have had to have paid tax on that, but it was obviously in a company, so company
that's
tax.
right. Yeah.
So I mean, we all and for everyone that, and it shits me to death, but everyone goes, oh, no, but you had to pay tax on that. Tell me a fucking job or a fucking business in Australia that you don't pay tax.
I get it all the time. Yeah, but the taxman takes half. I said, well, the taxman takes half of your pay.
Yeah,
this is my job, man.
Yeah.
Tax is inevitable.
100%.
and no one talks
unless you're in fucking Dubai or something and you're not paying tax.
But the thing is,
everyone's
like, everyone talks about salary or what I'm making, and they'll say, yeah, but that's before tax. I'm like, okay, but if I asked you how much you worked for, are you going to tell me you're before tax income or your after tax income?
Exactly.
Everybody talks before tax.
100%. When they're advertising a job on Seek, and they say, are they advertising the after tax amount or are they advertising the pre-tax?
It's just one of those bugbears, and I'm sure. I know that you get it because you get it all the time. But and it's just understanding, I suppose.
Yeah. There's a massive, obviously, tall poppy thing in Australia, and obviously, I mean, the Flipping House Australia Facebook group's a perfect example of that. Yeah. And you were part of that group when I first started it back in the day. But there's obviously a lot of, there's a lot of people out there that they don't like seeing people.
It's just noise, though, isn't it?
Well.
You just sort of you get to that point where you just go, there's always going to be the people that'll you can really sort of judge someone's outlook on the way. Like if I say to you something that I've done, and the way you come back, if it's negative straight away, I can't help you.
It's jealous.
Do you know what I mean? I can't help you. Like that's where you've gone to that place where if you're sort of a positive response, then that's just the sort of person you are. So it's noise.
Yep.
Just let it go.
That's the importance of mindset, right?
It is, yeah.
And typically those that are winning, are not overly negative. Right.
No, that's right. I mean, you've got to think that it's positive, or you've stuff from the get go, aren't you? Really? So,
100%. Alrighty. So first deal was an absolute success. At what point did you say I'm going to walk away from 17 years of FIFO?
Yeah, good point. That was definitely a catalyst. That was at a point where I think I was already going down that path, but that was just what I needed to go eyes wide open. Okay, this you can do this. That was the confidence booster that I needed. I also had some changes in my family structure as well. Become an empty nester, so we had some other things. We were sort of preparing a house that we'd been in for 20 years for sale, so they were all starting to line up, and some other factors had come in. So it was definitely part of the mix for me to decide that, I can come home.
So what month was it? So what month did you sell and get paid for that first deal in 24? What month was that? And what month did you walk away from your job?
Well, it would have been about April that it settled.
Okay.
After all that, I left FIFO. I've got to make sure I get so where were we in 25? So 24, I left FIFO July 1 last year.
Okay. So just over a year ago.
Yeah. So it wasn't long after that deal really. And I was very close to nailing another one. which was also a bit of a catalyst as well. So
Okay.
yeah,
Was that the second deal that you did?
yeah, it's the second one. Yeah.
All right, let's walk through the second deal. Now I know that the first deal was an absolute walk in the park,
Yeah.
147K, and the second deal you still made a very tidy profit.
Yeah.
But your words were that it was a what?
An absolute nightmare in the end, but yeah, yeah. Look, we were talking before about learnings coming from potentially negative things. There was a lot learnt on this one. Very fortunate that I turned it around and made the money that I did.
Yep. Which was
120.
120K.
Yeah, but that one was, it was a 12-week reno. I had a considerable blowout in my renovation expenditure on that one, purely because of what I got myself into as far as what I bought. And I know they're your favourites as well, the old fibro on stumps houses. You're not a huge fan of them either, sort of thing.
I think you called it an onion. Can you tell us why you called it an onion?
Well, it was an onion because in such an old house like that, when you start to peel back the layers, the vast majority of houses in Perth are brick and tile or brick and tin or pretty much brick on a slab. This was an old 1950s, 1960s sort of State Housing Commission or Forestry Commission house, which they're pretty common over that way, sort of just east of Midland. So you've got Jarrah, structural things, and it's clad with asbestos, which was my first forte in playing in that regard. So yeah, it was a beast. I went from I knew that this thing was in bad shape. I knew that. I wasn't blind to that. But the depth totally caught me out. And I ended up I was already mentally trying to transition away from doing a lot of the stuff myself, and really trying to manage trades. And I did pretty well on Thornley. I got it painted professionally. They did the tiling. I did some little bits and pieces. Unfortunately, the second one I ended up back in and hard. I was over there, 7 days a week for quite some time. So that was a learning curve. Yeah. That was a real learning curve, that one.
The asbestos for me is always I call it a red flag.
Yeah.
But in saying that, though, you can't be a property flipper and not deal with asbestos, right? Because old houses, I think pretty much anything pre-1990.
In little bits and pieces, they'll have it. Yeah, exactly.
But if you're buying stuff in the 60s and 70s, talk to me about that, about the asbestos removal and just, and obviously this house, what you had didn't just have asbestos on the internal light.
It was clad.
It was the external, and that's what we call a fibro home, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it wasn't just about the removal; it was how to deal with what was staying as well. So I mean, I didn't remove the cladding from the outside of the house. That was surprisingly in good condition. I ended up having some small repairs on that. You can't really sand it or do whatever you do, but that was all painted and sealed up, which was good. Where it sort of, I ended up, the horsehair gyprock, or what we call gyprock now, so the plasterboard.
Yep.
Originally when you sort of scooted around, had a look, I thought, I'll repair this room and I'll get this repaired and whatever. Every little bit of horsehair was removed from that house. All the walls, all the ceilings, the whole place was gutted. Some structural stuff, stumps. I had rotten stumps. I had termites in stumps. I had, mate, you name it. I had everything. So the scope of that just exploded.
Yeah.
And I had to dig deep. And I was fortunate that I'm pretty handy, and I could sort of see what needed to be done. I still got the professional people in. I didn't do any of the sheeting. I got the plasterers in to resheet the whole house. But a lot of the grunt work I ended up doing myself, and
hard, labour intensive stuff.
Yeah, and pulled it through, and fortunately, I don't like to use the word luck or anything like that, but fortunately, my agent did a great job, and I got the money that I got in the end to make it worthwhile. But a lot of lessons on that one.
Okay, well that's the next question. So from a lessons point of view,
yeah,
talk to me. What would you not do in the future, after going through that project? And the reason I ask is, in some cases, like sometimes the big projects, they don't necessarily, sometimes the easier projects pay better.
Yeah.
Some like the smaller projects pay better. Sometimes people think by taking on a bigger project that there might be, there might be
more
more money
scope
in it.
for money, but you've also, it's not necessarily just about the financial outcome. I mean, we flip for money,
Yeah.
but I look at the overall outcome of that one, and that cost me personally and mentally. Do you know what I mean? Like there was a big cost in that one. So,
Time.
but that's what I mean. It absorbed me for a considerable amount of time. So if I was to look at it again, I do joke with Lynn, my wife, that even if I was given that house today, I don't think I'd take it.
Well, you could just sell it to another flipper.
Yeah,
and then
and that's what I'd do, and I'd just say
say.
sorry, but this is not for me. It's risk profile. I think for me personally, and look, there's going to be people out there that have got a higher risk profile than I do. I know there are. If I was to come across something like that now, even it'd have to be a smash out of the park deal, because you don't know what you don't know. And that's what got me on this one, from the walk around and doing the normal stuff, yeah. And what it ended up being in the end was twofold. You know what I mean? So,
And you've got to take into consideration the opportunity cost, right?
Yep.
Because you made 120K profit.
Yep.
Reno took you 3 months, but you could have potentially have done 2 smaller projects and made the same amount of money,
and
or
I wasn't
considerably more.
farming in that whole time.
Correct, because
I was literally on the tools, and if I wasn't on the tools, I was stressing or whatever that whole time. So I'm a huge believer in opportunity cost, and
Yep.
there was an opportunity cost. It's just not written down on paper, but
Yep.
you understand it. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
100%. All right, let's run through the numbers on that project. So you obviously, this one was a purchase. So what
Yep.
did you pay for this
I
property?
paid $350 for that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Renovation cost for this one?
Well, yeah. I mean, pure honesty. My renovation budget was in the 70s, if I remember correctly, and it went to 120.
Okay, so big blowout.
Yeah, big blow.
That's a learning in itself,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, and look, that's again, I'm fortunate that I had those reserves. Some people don't, and run a bit of a tighter ship. That could have really undone the project if they couldn't have got the extra funds or didn't. Where I've got to sort of be clear here is the blowout was because of my belief in where it went. So I ended up having to replace major parts of the house. And then
Structural?
Structurals, mainly the stumping and that sort of stuff. All that I wasn't supposed to be recladding it, those sorts of things. So it was like a bit of a snowballing effect, because then I started thinking, I'm now investing all this money, and these things look great, and then this thing didn't look great. Yeah, so it was like, well, what do I do? Because if I really want to sweat this asset and get as much out as I can, I've got to sort of almost change tack and really put some focus on these other points to try and bring the whole project up. Dangerous, very dangerous, but it paid off. So that's where the blowout was. It wasn't just the little things I come across. It was that I had to then raise the bar on certain other things to make sure that the finished project, was slightly better than what the original plan was.
Yeah, so. Perfect. I appreciate that you obviously, share with us that, the renovation budget blowout, because, like it's not all, it's not all peaches, right? Like any business has got its challenges, and obviously property flipping and renovating certainly no different.
And I'm the last person that wants to try and, convince someone to get into something with all the great stories that, it's all roses and that sort of stuff. Real talk, really, good and bad.
100%. So you purchase it for
$350.
And then the renovation 120?
127, maybe, somewhere around there in the 120s. Yep.
Yep. Sold it for?
$630.
630.
Yep.
Okay.
And then holding costs, because I funded that one personally.
Yep.
I've still basically, charged the company the cost of that money.
Yep.
So
essentially, I mean, you got purchase costs, holding costs, selling costs.
Yeah, agents and all that. Yeah.
So after all those costs, the profit we walked away with about 120.
Yeah. So that wasn't too bad. And a lot of learnings.
And a lot of grayer hair.
Grayer hair. I think I was a bit thinner at the end. It's a bit of stress, an ulcer maybe.
Oh gee.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. I mean, it makes you stronger and better having a tough project, because, like you said, those lessons that you've learned from that one, you can certainly
Oh, but
use
the eyes are tuned a lot better.
100%.
Yeah. So
Cool. All right. So the third and fourth project I know sort of came at similar time.
almost concurrently or at the same time.
We won't talk about. We'll dive into the Balladura, the one that you're living in at the moment, but we'll go to the other one,
Swan View.
Swan View.
So that was a slow burn, and I'm actually having quite a bit of success with the slow burns, mainly because I think that once you understand the seller, and if you got to work out what's going to work for them, you can't pressure, or you just sort of get to know who they are. And the lady that I bought Swan View off was another older lady, absolute distaste for government and all that. She just hated everybody, and so spent a lot of time over there drinking coffee and listening and working out and trying to work out the best way to do that one. The difference on that one was it wasn't a bad house. There was nothing really wrong with that house. It had some bits and pieces, but nothing out of the ordinary. She just didn't want to deal with agents. She didn't want to. She had her own motivations, basically. And it was nearly to the day 12 months between first contact and buying that property. And it was just a little bit of back. And I think that's just the pace that she ran at.
Yep.
Even to the point where, we'd sold the property and I'd still allowed her to have some stuff there. And it took 3 weeks for her to get her stuff. She was just a very slow process person. And once I got to understand that, I used it in my approach to her. So, that was just another one that was a letterbox drop, that one.
So secured it through a letterbox
drop?
Yeah,
she responded to a letterbox, a pamphlet that we had in her letterbox. And I think I ended up going out there, it would have been about 5 times.
Wow.
Yeah. And at one stage I took the wife out as well, just to, make
a bit more rapport building.
Yeah, and just to sort of show that we're just normal people, and I very much, people have got different ways that they present their business or their whatever. I don't try and sort of talk about my company name or that sort of thing. I do a bit of a more personal that we're just renovators and that sort of thing.
Which is true, right?
Yeah, it is true. It is true. I mean, I'm not because I'm getting off topic here slightly, but I've also been contacted by people to do their renovations, and I'm like, that's not who we are. We do a specific structure and
our own project.
That's right. So anyway, we did a bit of toing and froing, and the numbers didn't work, and she went off and spoke to agents and had problems with them again, and came back, and so it was about 12 months before we actually settled on that, and it didn't work. It didn't sort of land very well timing wise with some of the other stuff that we were doing, and as I said, there was nothing wrong with the place. So I literally...
So you bought it well under market?
Well under market. I think we went under... Well, if you're just using such a basic thing like RP data as an example, it was about 160.
Under market?
Under market.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was this a buy and hold, buy, reno, hold? Have you put a tenant in this one or you flipped it?
Well, that's what I'm getting at now. Like it was originally looking at a flip.
So you purchased it with the intention to flip?
Yeah, it was. But then you sort of thought, well, there's nothing wrong with the kitchen and nothing wrong with that. And then you think, yeah, I can. So in the end, we just put a tenant in it. So, and we're just letting it soak. We haven't even really, we've signed a 12-year lease, and I've spoken to the wife, and a 12-month lease. Jeez. No. So, and even the structure of that one, because we had to think on our feet, I didn't buy that in the company. I actually personally bought that because I knew that we were probably just going to do something a little bit different with it. So we bought that in our name. Let it soak for 12 months, let the Perth market do its thing, and then we'll get to it. Now, whether we extend that or go in and give it a lick of paint and get rid of it, that's just for, I mean, we even use conventional lending on that one.
Yeah.
Bank lending, and just parked it over there. So, yeah, we got it through the flipping channel.
Yep.
But we've put it in a different entity and parked that for now.
So, perfect. So deal 3.
Yep.
Basically, initially it was going to be a flip, but you decided it was going to be a buy, reno, hold.
Yep.
You put a tenant in it. So your purchase price was
$580.
Yeah. And so what was the actual reno cost?
Was going to be 80, but for me to put the tenant in, I put a fence up, and
so what that owe you?
Less than $5,000.
Less than $5,000.
Yeah.
So 580 purchase.
Yeah.
5K just to get a tenant in there.
And I'm getting $730 a week for it, and
And
it's just sitting there.
what's the value on that one now?
$740.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've created what's that? 160
Yeah,
in
pretty much
equity
instant. Yeah.
without doing anything.
Yeah.
Happy days.
And that's why we grabbed it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, why not?
I mean, this is the beauty of like value add strategies, right? Because I mean, in this case, you didn't really have to do too much
No.
value add, right? But I suppose this is the value in not only value add strategies, but buying property, at wholesale, buying property under market.
Yeah.
Because, majority of people don't realize the opportunity of buying off market
Yep.
and these sorts of, active strategies. Because when you're just buying traditional buy hold properties and you go into the market with everybody else and you're paying retail for these sorts of properties, it can be a slow burn to get
Yep.
the equity right. I mean, if you're fortunate enough to be in a market where there's strong growth, then you can get it a lot quicker. But in many markets aren't always going up in price. So if you can be active and you can use a strategy like buying off market, buying under market value, adding value through renovation and these sorts of things, you can create instant equity, which enables you to go again, basically, versus so many people with a buy hold strategy, they've got to literally wait for that equity before they go again.
It's probably one of the most powerful things I've learned, not just in flipping, it's pre-flipping, is the money is made when you buy.
100%.
Yeah, you can renovate, you can do whatever you're going to do, but if you buy poorly, it costs you time, it costs you everything. Like, if you got to buy well. So,
yeah, you're right. And a lot of people out there using buyers agents now to buy properties, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good buyers agents, but there's also a lot of terrible buyers agents.
Yeah,
and
there's been an explosion in buyers agents. Yeah,
yeah, and I say that because I've made a lot of money flipping houses, and a lot of the time, the people buying properties that I've sold or I've flipped have been buyers agents acting on behalf of, say, interstate buyers and stuff like that. And sometimes, especially, being deep in the cycle or something like that, where a lot of the growth has happened, and I sit there sort of, shaking my head at like, I can't believe a buyer's agent has just bought in this suburb after,
I know.
the
And
the
it
growth.
shows you the other side of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
That was the same. That was like on the Thornley one. That was an agent from the east. You think, oh, well, if he's willing to pay it, I'm willing to take the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But it just goes to show you how important education is.
Yeah.
Because if you are, and like I said, I'm not here to ditch buyers agents. I think they've absolutely got a place, and some are great. But if you're relying solely on somebody else to source for you,
yeah,
But if you've got the education to do it yourself, the money you can make, like you said, when you buy the property,
that's right.
is massive, isn't it?
That's it. And we've only touched on, the letterbox drops. There's so many other ways to get them off the market.
Yep.
It doesn't, it's just, especially in a hot market like Perth.
Yep.
It's if you're competing, the news is constantly putting up, stories of 90 people turning up to a home open or whatever. You're not going to get a great deal in that
Correct.
environment. So it's super important to have strategies to get properties that are a bit uglier or just not known about, or as you say, off market.
For sure. And one of those strategies, obviously, agent relationships, right?
Yep.
So a lot of people don't realize is that the houses that need renovating, a lot of the time they don't make the market. That's just the reality, because if you're an agent and you get a bucket of crap home, you know that 98% of buyers aren't interested in that home. So by having a home open, they're charging a couple of grand to the seller for marketing fees and that sort of stuff. And the reality is it's only going to be a property flipper, renovator that's going to buy the property. So, what do you say the power of those agent relationships be? And what I'm talking about is the fact that these agents can bring you opportunities off market. So essentially, it's another avenue of actually buying property versus, like you said, at an open home where you've got 50, 60 other people at a home open.
I'll be honest and say I haven't put as much effort as I should have into agent relations. But chatting with the community that we have as far as other flippers and that sort of stuff, there's been huge success of them being fed deals. I'm a bit scattered at the moment. I know you're a huge fan of focusing in a certain area. I'm still at that point where they're coming from all different avenues.
Yep.
So the agent relations, for me, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. But for me, there's definite work to be made in that relationship with agents. I originally wanted to try and find an agent that I would use to sell that would try and bring me properties, but that didn't work either. But definitely one of the good avenues. And I was a little bit skeptical of that until I think it was one of our social meets that we had a year ago. I think it was Michelle I was speaking to, and I sort of said, "Oh, how you find it? Is anybody really getting anything from the agents?" And she's like, "Oh, my last 3 flips I've got from an agent, and it's exactly that. Come across his desk, he knows that he can go and have home opens and have empty houses or whatever, or he can, and the guy's desperate to sell, and he knows someone's number, and
Yeah.
that's how it happens.
It's actually a selling point for the agent, and I'll tell you why. Because a lot of agents, right, for them to win the listing, they're going to say to the seller, okay, X amount of commission, and I need a couple of $1,000s up front for marketing, put it on realestate.com, domain, signboard, all that sort of stuff. But if the agent can turn around and say to the seller, hey, look, your house is, needs a lot of work. It's not going to appeal to many people. It's really going to appeal to, flippers and renovators. Look, I've actually got a few of those guys on my books.
No home opens.
Yeah, you don't have to have home opens. What we can do is essentially I can reach out to these people. You're going to save $2,000 on marketing fees, and I can probably get an offer for you pretty quickly.
Yep.
And like I said, it's only going to be a renovator or a flipper that buys it anyway. How about we bring a couple of these through?
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously the seller's like, oh, if I can save $2,000 on marketing,
Yeah,
let's do it.
that's it.
And so that's why these agent relationships are so important, because a lot of these homes just don't make it to market because the agent, what's their priority is to win the listing. So if there's 2 or 3 other agents that they're up against, and they're all those other agents are saying, okay, it's going to cost you a couple of grand in marketing fees, but this agent can say, actually, I'll save you $2,000 in marketing fees, and I've
already
call a couple.
Got someone on the books.
Yeah,
ready to go.
You can see why they don't make it to market.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so first couple of deals, obviously flips, 147K profit. Second one, 120. Third one, a buy, run, and hold with
equity,
with some nice equity in it. The fourth one we went and had a look at just the other day.
Yeah, so they were sort of happening about the same time. I can't remember. I settled on that November last year, and then we ended up moving into it.
Yep.
Again, with my family, the way it was a bit of house juggling. I was renovating a place in Bayswater, and I ended up.
This was an investment property in Bayswater?
Yeah, that's right. This is the one that I joke about being Perth's worst house. It was on the news as Perth's worst house. Which is great. They just love that sort of stuff because it wasn't, obviously. But ended up moving my son into that one, and then we ended up moving into the one in Balladura. So that one, the owner reached out to me through an ad that I had running, and that was in a really he had got himself into a real bind there. The sort of houses that you drive past and it's just the whole front yard is just full and there's graffiti and, you wonder if anybody's actually living there. That's the standard of the house when we got it. And then going inside was even worse. Heavily fire damaged, no power, no gas. Everything had been isolated. There was no services and still living there. The pool was you could almost walk across the top of the pool. It was full of that. I mean, it took me there was bikes, there was shopping trolleys, there was couches.
These are the houses we're buying.
It was, but I do have a good lens when I walk through these places that I'm literally scanning the walls, the size of the rooms, like the actual structural integrity of the place. Yeah, I'm on the verge of throwing up, but it's so what? Yeah, it's and this was hygienically and that side of things is the worst one that we've had.
This was also a drug house, right?
It was drug users, yeah, absolutely. My original concern was that the fire in the kitchen might have been something to do with manufacturing, that sort of stuff. But we did the testing on that, and that was fine. So I wouldn't have even touched it then, because when you're getting that level of manufacture, it permeates into everything, and some houses get condemned. That's how bad it can be. Now you're going to get. We did some other testing, and there were some very mild reactions that we got sorted. But I think you'll find
and by sorted you mean cleaned professionally. Essentially.
Exactly. And it's something that people have got to be aware of. I mean, you look at if you tested every rental in the Perth market would you find?
Bloody oath you would.
Every hotel room. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's something that is there. It's not something. Unfortunately, you talk about a drug house and people instantly sort of get their hackles up and they don't. Yeah, but there's differences.
Correct.
Manufacturing,
Cookhouses,
grow houses, those sorts of things are a totally different thing than you've detected some casual use and whatever. So it was a negotiating tactic as well. Once we had the test and got a further reduction in the price.
Just talk to me on that. Just go through the whole like negotiation. Like obviously you're using okay, this is what's happened. I've got to do X amount.
Well, I wrote it in the conditions of sale. Trying to mitigate all the risks in a house like that is a bit of a minefield. I knew that there was risks around power being restored, gas being restored, the fire, like what was the fire, how bad, so obviously the property structural report from the inspector was a part of the conditions. And then, talking to the owner, I knew that drugs were part of the mix because, he was going down that path, unfortunately, himself. So I wrote that into the conditions. I said, look, I left it very open on my end, subject to purchasers, my happiness of the testing sort of thing, so that at any point I could pull the pin, And if we had found it in the kitchen, I was prepared to walk away. So, but did the testing, did the rectifying the back bedroom where it was found, and but I did go back to him and I just said, look, we have found it, and he was really surprised and played all that game and everything, and I said, look, it's not cheap to get it fixed, and just threw a number and it stuck. So there was a lot going on in that house. So
and so with this one, obviously, walk us through the reason for doing enough so you could move into it and then renovating versus just flipping it straight away, because obviously, like I said, your plan it's a 12-month. You're living in it and renovating it over a 12-month period. Yeah. I also know that you're obviously building out in the hills.
That's right. So there was multiple factors that sort of put us into that house. It was not choice number one, obviously, but
you're brave. You're brave for living in it.
Well,
for 12 months.
The wife's brave. I mean, I can live anywhere; it doesn't bother me. But not many women want to move into that environment. So I do take my hat off to her big time. There was the family sides of things that I touched on before. I needed to. I wanted to provide a house for my son to be closer to where we lived. He was living much further away in another one of my investment properties. So that was one of the impacts. The other impact was the timeline. As I said, we were going to start building. So a lot of the things just all lined up.
Yep.
And the actual scope of the renovation was going to take quite a long time. Even as a flip, it would have been quite a slow burn because of what needed to be done.
Yep.
So I thought, if we can live in the property and basically negate our living costs into the project so that it sort of just softens the blow of it taking so long, it's not costing us anything. We own the house.
Yeah.
Then I can sort of manage the house, getting it fixed, getting it renovated and that sort of stuff on a bit of a slower burn.
Yep.
And it really is our B project at the moment. We still do other things. It's just that when there's nothing else on, we chip away at that house.
Okay.
And we could have done it a lot quicker, but the nature of the house, it's got the pool, it's got the big outdoor area, it's opposite the park. It's a very sunny weather house. So I didn't want to do a quick reno and then end up in the winter that we've just had trying to sell a house with a beautiful pool and outdoor area. I knew that the money was going to be made in those sunnier seasons, plus a little bit of Perth growth as well in there, because I knew that Perth was also growing. So.
Yeah, awesome. So a bit of market growth along the way.
Yeah, so it all just added up.
So let's just quickly run through the numbers on that one. So you purchased that one for?
I got it for originally $655, negotiated down to $645 with the math.
Okay, so $645.
$645.
And so estimated reno cost on this one?
About 70 grand.
70.
Yeah.
And obviously we're going to hold it for 12 months, but what I know you're expecting to sell it for.
Well, we originally went, we're probably 900 was a realistic sort of figure back late last year.
Yep.
I'm already. I mean, I keep an eye on the market in that area as you do when
Yep.
when it affects you. And they're breaking through the 900s quite easily now for substandard to what we've got houses. So we'll go deep into the nines on that one as well. So,
And so what sort of profit's that going to be?
well, I mean, the original profit was sort of looking at about the 130 to 150. We'll probably push 200 on that now.
Amazing.
And the best thing about, well, not the best, but one of the other things that to consider is we're going to own it for 12 months. We bought it in our personal names. It's our principal place of residence. There's no tax on that one.
Amazing.
So that's what we talk about with
I
structures.
was gonna say,
It's not just one structure fits all. You've got to look at the project and you've got to make the decision at the start.
Yep.
Because if I had bought that in the company, I couldn't have done, the tax would be different. And
100%.
you can't change. It's not from it's the offer and acceptance. It's the entity that you put down on that offer and acceptance. Get it right.
And WA is one of those states that once you put it in there, you can't reallocate
You change it again, that's another stamp
double
duty.
stamp duty. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I've had ones where I've been on the fence where you're just like, which way do we go? So that's a learning.
I love it. I love it that you mentioned that because, like you said, these are decisions that have to be made at the beginning.
That's right.
And, do I put it in a company? Do I put it in a trust? Or how about we live in it for a year because we're building and we can't move into that home until it's ready?
Yeah.
Why don't we live in this one for 12 months, buy it in our own names,
And the tax
PPR, and then there's
savings.
no tax at all.
Exactly.
So that 200K is profit.
In the bank. Yeah.
There's no 25% company tax or anything like that. Happy days.
Yeah. Know the tax laws as best you can.
Have a good accountant.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
All right, Jay. So deal number 5 settles in a couple of days. East Fremantle. It's your first unit or apartment.
Yeah. That's,
Project?
that one was another one that he reached out to me. So responded to an ad. Very sort of aggressive, sort of said, I've got a property for you. This is right down your alley. And I was like, okay, let's have a look at this. Mentioned the unit side of things and initially thought, okay, I'm not really versed in this space. So started to have a look at that sort of thing, went down, met him. And yeah, same sort of thing. I've met him 4 times. He's a guy that's spent a lot of time driving taxis. He's owned this unit. I think he's the oldest lengthwise owner in the complex. It's a complex. His unit is on the top floor, and I think he's been there since 1987.
Okay.
Something like that. He's owned it that long.
Yep.
So, but very similar in regards to what we were talking about before about the state of the place.
Okay.
It's yeah.
What is it?
It's a two bed unit. Now he lives in there with a small dog, and I don't think the dog gets out at all. It's definitely on the nose.
Stinks.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad. The carpets are long gone, so it's all just concrete.
Okay.
He has, over the course of time, tried to fix up some bits and pieces and failed and left it. There's tiles missing everywhere. There's bricks missing. There's parts of the ceiling missing. It's perfect.
It's a renovator's. It's a renovator's delight.
Exactly, it's perfect. And there was a bit of toing and froing on that one. Went down there, had a look at it. Quickly got up to speed. Fortunately, in that one, it's quite a big unit complex. So doing comparative sales was a walk in the park because it's predominantly they're identical, if not sort of mirrored.
Yep.
So you've got sales from the last however long you want to go back, and you can sort of see the progression of where they're going and the state of the renovations and some good ideas too, because they're identical. So I went back and forth. Tried to do a JV on that one because he wanted to go out and go traveling.
Yeah. Okay.
So I did try and say that, well, how about I release a bit of money early, get you out of here, and then we'll just do a joint venture and try and, because to be honest, it's going to be a bit of a lean one.
Yep.
This one's going to be a bit lean, but
What are we looking at for this one?
about 70 to 80 profit.
Okay. I mean, that's not too bad.
Yeah, but it is literally going to be a four maximum 6 week reno because there's no gardens, there's no roofs, there's no gutters, there's no driveway. You're literally renovating a box.
Yep.
Anything that's outside is strata. So windows, anything outside is all strata.
Yep.
So you can't touch it. The only thing I'm doing outside is it's got a really nice balcony, sort of a 12 square metre balcony that overlooks the Port of Fremantle. you can see Rottnest, you can see Garden Isle, you can see up and down the coast. I'm just going to paint the floor of that
Yep.
again. But everything else is inside. So scope-wise, it's probably half a reno.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, I wouldn't have gone much leaner. I mean, 70 to 80 is pretty much as lean as I'd go for anything.
So no less than 70K profit in a deal.
I just think, you're not leaving yourself a lot of risk appetite. We spoke
Yep.
about it earlier. My risk appetite, maybe because I'm a bit older, would be probably a little bit less than maybe someone that's a bit more aggressive or is, maybe if you had some more volume, you were doing a bit more of them or whatever, and that is the plan to do more. But as it stands and as it was, and also his expectations, I had to manage them. I came in, I won't talk the exact figures, but I was about 40 grand under what he wanted, and we sort of did meet. I went a little higher than not my break point, but it was into my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
ended up I got that one for 490.
490. So you did pitch the JV, but he wasn't okay with it, or
I don't really think he got his head around it.
Yeah. Okay.
And he had got to a point in his life where he wanted the big bucket of money, and then he wanted to disappear into the sunset.
Yep.
And the JV just didn't fit that mold.
Where's he going? What's his plan?
He's just going to buy a full drive and a caravan
Yep.
and take off. I mean, and that was half the stuff we spoke about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
There's been a few people in the program that have literally bought houses from people, and they've just literally done that. They bought a Land Cruiser.
I think Ben's one. They were taken off, weren't they?
Bought a Land Cruiser and a caravan, off they go. But it's happened a couple of other times as well.
The only scary side of that, total segue, is that you go travel for a year or two and you come back, you want to buy a property.
You have nothing left.
And and what's the market done in those 2 years?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So that's a bit scary. But anyway,
for sure.
So that one, got that one for 490.
Yep.
My first introduction to Strata, I've had some brief dealings with them, just breaking the ice. I want to do this. What sort of approvals do I need? Because I know that they can be quite onerous if you're not careful. They seem to be pretty good. I'm only doing a like for like reno.
So what would the reno cost you?
The reno's only going to be about 50 grand.
Okay.
And that's a generous 50 grand. Like, I think I'll get it under that.
Yep.
And I'll sell it for, I'm hoping 650.
Okay. And then that you walk away with after all you purchase.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because I've actually got to purchase all the stamp duty and all that sort of stuff. But that'll be a real quick turnaround, that one.
Yeah.
Now, the one, this is probably, this is where it sort of exposed me as to how I've been funding my journey so far, because that's what's been holding me up has been the funding. And this one is the first time I've had to use other people's money.
Yeah, okay.
Because all my money was in the ones that I've got, and the one.
And so who's funding this project for you?
My parents are funding this project for me.
So they're your money partner.
They are an official money partner. It is an investment.
Yep.
And they had total faith in what I'm doing, and they were in the position to do it.
Yep.
So, but it was a moment that I had, and I love them dearly for doing it. But I'm thinking, I can't just keep going like this. I can't just rely on just those that are close to me to fund it. So yeah.
Do you mind sharing the return that you're giving your parents as a money partner?
It's not. I won't go into the specifics, but it is considerably less than what I would out to the market.
Okay.
And that's I had to sort of pull them up, lift them up a bit.
They wanted to give it to you for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's parents. They just want to look after their son. So, but yeah, it's a business deal to some degree. So yeah,
perfect. Have you done the loan agreement with them, or is it there's a lot of trust there being the family?
This isn't the first time I've borrowed a big chunk from my parents. When I did the first time, I did get a reasonably generic one that you can buy from a law firm, and did that. And I think it's called like a family and friends something or other, just in case I died or whatever. It could be used for legal sides of things. And that they were happy with that. This time they haven't sort of needed that, or they can see that it's an ongoing thing, and that I'm sort of involving them as much as they want to be involved, right down to like pictures and updates, and in it as they want to be, sort of
Yeah.
thing. So
It's awesome, mate. It's awesome
mm.
that they're
Yeah, not
supporting.
everybody can just go, yeah, hey mum, you
Yeah, for
got
sure.
500 grand for me.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah,
I just want to dive a little bit deeper just on the strata stuff as well. Can you
yeah.
just tell us what some of the challenges you have with strata that you wouldn't have
The
with
potential,
a
yeah,
house?
the potential can be huge. I did reach out to a couple of people that had sort of played with different stratas, and some of them are almost no impact at all, and they just I was like, just do whatever you need to do, just don't annoy the other tenants or whatever. And then you've got right up to where you can't do anything. You've only got certain hours of the day that you can do this, or you've got to park in a certain you've got to with this reno, I'm going to need a skip bin.
Yep.
So ask that question, and it's like, oh no, it's as long as it occupies one car spot and doesn't take up three or hang out or impede the others. So they've been pretty good. Spoke about, obviously, it's going to need a new kitchen, it's going to need a new bathroom. There's going to be noise. I know the noise times. I'm also going to go over and above that and door knock and drop the tenants below and either side just
Yep.
to say, look, we're going to do our best, but during these times, there might be some, it's mainly for, I would say, bathroom demo.
Yep.
Tiles have got to come up, that sort of stuff. Kitchen, that's not too bad now because it's all flat packed and it goes together and it's battery tools and that sort of stuff. But as far as the other conversations I've had, I just mentioned they wanted to know the scope. I told them the scope. They said if it's like for like, not too bad. It's only when you're going to move a wall or you're going to try and open up something or do something structural, then they want to get involved. So they seem pretty reasonable. We'll see how it plays out, And I think that's important to engage the neighbours. Will be reasonably powerful in that regard as well, because if you can get everybody on side, I've even done that in flips just to know the neighbourhood a little bit, so that yes, there's going to be a truck here or there's going to be a bobcat working or something. It's going to stop that complaining or
get them on board.
Exactly. You don't want them playing up at your home open because you're making all that noise for the last couple of weeks or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So I'll do that as well and let them know.
What about the being the top floor unit? What about the acoustic rating for the flooring?
Yeah, well, that's I think the carpets were fine, but I'm not going with. I'm going to do like a hybrid throughout, and they've basically just got to. I've got to send it to them. With the intention, I'll do a bit more research as to if there's an acoustic rating or something that we need to look for. But I'll engage one of the local the flooring companies, and I've done the FIFO based on a certain square meterage. But I'll talk to a local company, and then they should be around. What's best used in those sort of situations. Flick it to the strata company, get that approved, and get it put in.
Very good. Awesome, mate. We'll look forward to hearing how this one goes.
That's Friday next week. She settles.
Yeah. Perfect. Beautiful. Yep. Well, and I know that there's one other in the pipeline that you're looking at.
Yeah, there's another. I'll give you some real high level stuff on that. In the similar area down towards that Fremantle area, another person has reached out, and another situation where things aren't going great in their life. There's been a bit of a breakup. They're mid reno, mid part of the development hasn't finished, so they're in a bit of a spot and reaching out for a solution. So pretty juicy project if I can do it, and definitely a win-win on that, because she's at breaking point. She just needs a solution. So I actually
you're that solution.
Well, I put the solution in yesterday. I put the offer in yesterday, and now we wait. And that's the game, isn't it? You wait, and it's all her time, and just and that's a JV.
Yep. And you it's a JV. Wow,
that's a JV because she's already out of it.
Yeah, okay.
And I just went ching JV.
Yeah, beautiful. No purchase cost.
And she saw the benefit straight away.
Yeah, okay.
As soon as I said this would suit a JV, and I explained it, she goes, "Well, absolutely. Why wouldn't we do it that way?"
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, that's
a bit more money for them.
Well, that's it, because I can actually. This is a bigger project. It's two dwellings, two separate titles on one sort of an A and a B sort of thing. So when you're looking at the offer is sort of between 1 and 1.3 in there. Stamp duties.
It's going to be what?
Holding
50,
costs,
60K.
You know what I mean? The holding costs of the money partners. There's probably 70, 80K all up that I can offer more because the actual offer is on the whole lot. I'm
Yep.
doing it as one deal.
Because it's a duplex too.
Well, it's not. It's totally different, but it's two separate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a
Granny
bill
flat and
behind.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a
gotcha.
bill behind. So see what happens.
Yeah,
Watch this
awesome.
space on that one.
Yeah,
Fingers
absolutely.
crossed.
And yeah, just on that, we were talking about before, like why people actually, would agree to, selling their property below market value or whatever. But we didn't even discuss, there's a lot of places, a lot of people that start renovations
Yeah,
and they don't finish them. They're
yeah,
half done, right?
yeah, and they get in over their heads. Yeah.
Correct. And then at the end of the day, who's going to buy it? It's only going
Yeah,
to be a renovator. It's only going to be a flipper that comes
they've
in.
actually lowered the value of their property
Yeah.
considerably, and some of the ones that I have looked at and haven't done a deal with, they haven't got their head around how much they have lowered their property price. There's just there's no kitchen left, or there's no bathroom, or whatever. You've taken a wall out, or you just think, mate, if you hadn't have touched it, it would have been worth more. But anyway, and there's heaps of them out there.
And people run out of money as well. They underestimate. They think they can do things. All of a
Marriage
sudden,
breakdowns, whatever, all
100%.
sorts. Yep.
Awesome, mate. Well, looking forward to following that journey.
Mm.
Okay, Jace. Well, in nearly 2 years, around about 700K in profit. Some of that's realised through flipping. Some of that's equity created from buy, reno, hold. Mate, firstly, how does that feel? And what's next for you and your family?
Well, to be honest, I hadn't done the sums. I hadn't done the sums to come to that figure that that's how. I know that we're doing well and creating equity, creating money in the company and all that sort of stuff. But when you say it like that, it feels good. It feels really good. And the best part of it is I love it. It hasn't been a chore. Like real estate has been something that I've had a career, but real estate has always been something that I've been into. And that's the most exciting part of it all now, is that the career side of things out of the way. And, I don't have to worry about anything else now except what we're going to do with the real estate. So the way ahead is more flipping. Absolutely more flipping, because that's one element of what I need to keep moving. So the flipping will be the salary side of things and building a bit more money to do other stuff. I'm already speaking to building brokers and about doing some developments and that sort of stuff. Just seeing if the numbers stack up. It's a different beast in itself. I want to get into commercial. Probably use my superannuation to do something along those lines. But I just want to diversify a bit. I think what we do as flippers is fantastic, but it's just one dimension. So I've got some rentals out there, a number of rentals that we're looking at, either moving them on, or some of them are in areas that does suit an Airbnb. So we're trying to look at everything in its own little separate project. One of the more exciting things is my wife's retiring at the end of the year, and she's going to come and be in the space. We don't really know exactly how that's going to work. Whether we, at the moment, we're talking about potentially a number of our rental properties, renovating those and selling them. So she might be involved in that.
Yep.
I don't think it'll be a husband and wife flipping team as such, because that is what I do, sort of thing. But it'll definitely be a real estate side of things, and also time for her to have some time off, So,
for sure.
So that's looking ahead is just more and more.
Awesome.
We did touch on, the semi-comical situation of my financing structures at the moment with my parents, funding. I think the biggest thing that has held me back in doing more flips, well, there's two things over the last 12 months. One is that I'm still too involved, which I know you love.
When you say too involved, you mean on the tools?
On the tools. I'm still too, nitty-gritty, getting dirty, spending too much time actually doing that. That's always been the plan for me to back off on that, and it's only the East Midland one that thrusts me back into that environment. So that's going to change to enable me to have more agent relationships, do more farming, do more of the actual...
More time to prospect.
Exactly, and do what is important. And the other one is the financing. So I subconsciously have always had a ceiling of like what I can achieve because of my financing. I know how much personal money I have, and I'm fortunate enough to have enough to buy what I've done to date, but it's a wall, and that wall needs to come down. So I need to get out there. I need to talk to do more win-win situations with money partners and people that want to invest and trust in my model and build those relationships, and that'll enable me to take it to the next level. So that's the plan there.
I'm going to give you a bit of a whack over the head here.
Yeah, why is that?
So you've obviously done exceptionally well since you joined the program, right? You've quit your FIFO job. You've made great money. Added to your portfolio.
Yep.
What do you reckon's held you back from? And obviously you've seen all the other students in the program, like so many of them use Money Partners and have success with Money Partners.
Yep.
What's held you back until now? Why 2 years later be like, okay, I'm finally going to use Money Partners? Why did you and you went and did a seller JV deal as your first deal, which is harder than getting a Money Partner. More legit. There's more to it when it comes to the legal side. What's held you back with the Money Partner stuff?
I have ultimate confidence in myself, and I can do what I put my mind to. I don't expect other people to have confidence in me. And that's what it's sort of coming down to. I think you would have heard it 100 times. Why would someone throw hundreds of thousands of dollars when we've met, a week ago? There's that mindset that I've always needed to change. I suppose having my own money has been a hindrance because it's sort of delayed that path of using Money Partners. So I just need to break the hoodoo. I just need to literally get out there, be a bit more social in the environments that I need to be as far as, meeting Money Partners, forging some relationships. I'm sure that once I do one or two,
100%,
I'll be like,
well, what was I doing?
Why did it take me so long,
You make an interesting point there about the fact that because you were able to self-fund some deals, it's actually held you back. Whereas if you were fully reliant on the Money Partners, then you would have just done that from the get-go. So it's interesting.
It's that in just about every aspect.
Because you're good on the tools.
I'm good on the tools.
So,
I've got my own money. So those things that would seem to be an asset can be a hindrance. And if you can lever them in the right direction, then it's pretty powerful to sort of step away from the norm.
And it all comes down to mindset, right? Like you've clearly got the right mindset because you're having success, but you've recognised that in order for me to scale and go from up to deal 5 in 2 years, if I want to do 5 deals a year, and therefore therefore I need to 1, be off the tools so I can prospect more, and 2, I need other people's fucking money to make more money.
But you can see why my love of JVs is so strong because it was that fear of and it is fear of how am I going to convince people to give me money? And it'll happen.
But if you can convince someone to do a seller JV with you, you can quite easily convince them to.
That's logic. That's not emotion. Anyway,
No, look, mate, I absolutely love it. This has actually been an amazing chat. Last thing I want to ask you, it's just about, you're fairly experienced now. You've had some massive wins. I mean, you've been able to literally leave your FIFO job that you did for 17 years. You're now funding your lifestyle through property flipping. Talk to me about what sort of advice would you give to other people who are sitting there, maybe FIFO, maybe tradies, maybe they're just people that they've been doing the same thing for a long time, they don't necessarily love it, and they're thinking about, hey, frig, I'd like to do this property flipping thing. What would you say to them?
Well, in the simplest term, and I'll expand on it, but take action. Because the amount of people, 17 years in FIFO, you talk to a lot of people and you hear the same story over again. I'm thinking about doing this. And then you run into them again in 5 years and you're, did you end up? Oh, no, I'm sort of thinking, take action. So that's the first thing is if you're going to do it, be ready to do it and action it. But the second thing is, and probably more important is get the training or get the knowledge. I've been doing it for a long time. It's only when I really pulled it all together that it really took off. Like you've got to get, and we're lucky because the training's available now. Like it's literally a matter of going and get the training done. My early days of renoing and everything was just winging it. Just a bit of this, bit of that. Oh, how does it work? I don't know. You've got there's property courses for every facet of what you want to get into, whether you want to, buy remotely or you want to flip houses or you want to do whatever, they're out there. But, obviously you've got to choose the right one and Facebook's very powerful for discussions on which ones are credible and which ones people have got value out of and that sort of stuff. I've already recommended people on this. I've referred one, and there's
Thank
another
you.
one, another guy that's asking me, how do you do it? I'm like, well, it's simple. You do the training,
Yep.
and you get in the network and you get around the people and you get, you're big on mindset, but you get into the circle of how everyone thinks and how, the information flows.
Yep.
It's important,
What you just said there, there's a saying, success leaves clues.
Yep.
So what that means is what you've just said is follow people that are fucking doing it, right? Because rather than trying to wing it,
Yep.
if you follow someone who's doing it already, someone like yourself, if other people can follow your journey, or my journey.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Correct.
Everybody's been mentored or some way, shape or another to get where they're at. So
yeah, 100%. Mate, last thing I want to touch on, because you mentioned about the FIFO thing, and obviously I've done FIFO as well. Certainly haven't done 17 years, but I did it for 2.5 years. And when I was there, all I wanted to do was to get out. But we touched on the mindset thing, and look, I don't want to generalize here, but you've obviously had a winning mindset, and when you were working FIFO, you obviously were building, buying investment properties and doing all the right things. But there's a lot of people out there, especially in the FIFO space, where they go out and buy the wrong things, toys that don't generate an income. You obviously did things a little bit differently. Like I said, bought investment property, that sort of stuff. Like that in itself to me is a mindset shift. People got to realize the difference between, an asset that's going to make the money versus, loans on jet skis and toys and boats and that sort of stuff. What would you say to those guys that are like, and how, what made you different to, and again, I'm not generalizing. I know there's a lot of people in FIFO that are successful, but what differentiates the ones, and this is not just FIFO, this is just in general, what differentiates people like you versus the people that are not thinking about their financial future?
Yeah, I think what comes to mind is I'm fortunate enough to have earned not a lot of money, and the problem with a lot of the guys that are in the FIFO community, they're younger guys and they've walked straight into big money, and they've just got no financial concept of how to make it all happen. And even when they do, they move the goalposts, so they create that trap without any real forward thinking. So. And then they start to ask the questions. Some of them do actually start, oh, how am I going to get out of this? And that's when it comes back to what I'm saying. You've got to take action.
Yeah.
Because, you can continue doing your FIFO if that's what you want to do and earn your money and it's paying everything. But you're upgrading the house and then you're upgrading that and it's trapping you to stay longer. So it's a matter of deciding that, it's not something I want to do forever. And then what are you going to do about it?
And that comes down to literally having a goal or goals, like you said, I'm going to do FIFO or whatever it is, X amount of time, have an exit strategy. Like, what am I going to do next? If I'm building up a cash flow portfolio, if I'm building up, residual income, if I'm trying to build, growth through property, whatever it might be, it's like actually having a plan.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people, they fail to plan, right?
Or they move, or they have a very soft plan. Most people, you speak to most of the guys and it's like, oh yeah, I'm only going to do. My joke is I'm 17 years into a quick 2-year mining stint.
Yep.
So I'm guilty myself. But people stay for different reasons. And what does life after FIFO look like? That's the problem. Is you create such an environment that is so dependent on what FIFO gives you. Well, how are you going to break that? How are you going to actually transition back into normal life? Earning what you're earning is not normal. But I'm no financial advisor in that regard. I've made my mistakes, but you don't have to be perfect. You just got to plant some seeds and make a bit of a plan. So
100%. And I think as well, it comes down to, and you've clearly done this. People just have to take responsibility for themselves and their outcomes, right? So, Australia, the way we get taxed and the cost of living here, like at the end of the day, it's hard to set yourself up financially just from an income.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to use your income and invest it to be able to set yourself up for the future.
That's right. Our dollar's going backwards, mate. You got to do something with it to keep up.
100%. And obviously putting your money into assets and having an active strategy like flipping, and it doesn't even have to be flipping, whether it's development or whatever it might be, but having a strategy that is actually going to get you to what it is that you want to achieve. So
that's right. Yep.
Mate, it's been awesome to reconnect. Obviously, like I said, you were one of the first guys in the program. I remember when it was like, there was all of 10 of us or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And you were one of those, the first people in there.
We'd have the calls, and you'd know everybody on the call.
Yeah.
It was like a catch up sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knew? I mean, it's not all that long ago, really. When
No,
you think about it.
yeah, well, it's less than 2 years ago.
Yeah,
So,
and it's just taken off, which has been really cool.
yeah.
It's a good resource, a good bunch of people.
Yep.
And I still, my phone's full of contacts with, and you might not speak for months, but we all sort of tap into each other every now and then. And
Strong community.
Yeah, it is. It's good. It's been a bit of a surprise, actually. So
Legend.
in a good way.
Awesome, mate. Thank you very much. I
No worries.
appreciate it. It's been great having you on.